Well, hello, students and teachers from coast to coast to coast. We welcome you here today. It is day 5 of Truth and Reconciliation Week. It's been a fabulous week of knowledge from knowledge keepers from across, as I said, from coast to coast to coast. Uh, I'm Andre Gracie, and I am with the Truth and Reconciliation Week team. And I want to remind the teachers that you can certainly put your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll get to them after the session. And I'm honored today to introduce our next knowledge keeper, Elder Albert Marshall. Elder Marshall is from Moose Clan of the Mi'kmaq Nation. Elder Albert and his late wife, Merdina Marshall, live in Eskasoni First Nation and Unamagi, and advocated for the preservation, promotion, and revitalization of Mi'kmaq traditional knowledge, including language, spirituality, stories, practices, and ways of knowing. I'm so pleased to welcome you to this session by Albert Marshall. The session is called Two-Eyed Seeing, a Mi'kmaq Perspective. Albert, over to you.
Thank you very much. I got to take a few things out. I'm unmuted. Well, anyway, I'd like to extend my deepest appreciation for allowing me to be part of your circle here. I will do my best to share with you of some of the stories that have been left here for me by my ancestors. And I will try my best to be the conduit to those wisdoms and knowledges. But before I get started, I'd like to request that if I may say a little prayer, more or less to ground myself, that all my words will come from my heart and not allow my head or my ego to overshadow anything that I say or do. And this is how it goes. Grandfather, our Creator, we ask you to look upon us in a good way and to accept the small offering of sweetgrass we have prepared. We are here together to be of one heart, one mind, as you have intended for all of us, for all your creations to be. Look upon us in a good way. You have given us our minds, and so we are called together to think and to use what we have been given for those who are in need. We have gathered here so that we might gain knowledge that we need, and which comes from beyond ourselves, that we might that we might have an insight and visions. We need to consider the right things to do and to make decisions wisely, and to come to the right ideas and to share with one another the greatest gift of all, ourselves. And we call upon the spirit of renewal and the spirit of healing that supports us on either side as we walk along the trail of life, that we might be renewed again as people, that healing be in our nation, in our communities, in our families, but most importantly, within ourselves. That as knowledge navigators, we might find healing and have the wisdom and strength to walk any path set forth by you, Grandfather. As you gaze upon Mother Earth, you can see the great spirit of life. And now we are placed at the center of this life, that we follow this path that you, our Creator, has picked for us to follow. With this kind of all-seeing eyes, we too might understand our purpose in this life and accept it to the fullest. As knowledge navigators, we walk upon this earth to be reminded Let our path through life be one of love, understanding, compassion, healing, and thanksgiving. We send out this offering with one voice, and that we ask for the blessings that we need to do the work that is that is ahead of us. May the Great Spirit use the sun to light the path for us, to gain wisdom, knowledge, healing, and guidance. And may the Creator use the moon to give us peace, serenity, strength to us all, so that when our journey ends here on earth, we too might see each other with a straight eye and meet without shame. Today is, I believe, something that we should be mostly concerned with and talking about, of course, is reconciliation. And I would believe that this concept of tuwai sin, or Edwakdamuk, by the way, does not define that concept of tuwai sin. Edwakdamuk is an action. It's an action word in which it reminds us, or reminds me, I, as a Mi'kmaq person, I see everything from my Aboriginal lens. And that lens, of course, is being reinforced through the customs, through the rituals, through the ceremonies, and the wisdoms that have been left here for us by my ancestors. And again, and I'm trying to the best of my ability to be just a conduit and to hear those lessons or the stories for the benefit of all. Because it is very easy for us, for anyone, to only to see with one eye. Because when we use those two icons of twice, everyone has twice. Initially, it was intended for us to remind our young people that you have and you are what you are and who you are because of your culture and what our ancestors have left for us. And for that, and for you to use those to the best of your ability, and also be very adamant and see with the other lens of what other perspectives others may bring to you. Not only give you a better advantage of addressing an issue that might be before you, but also to help you the journey of wherever that journey might take you. I've known very well that when you have multi perspectives, then I believe that should give you quite an advantage of being able to meet the challenges, what those challenges may be. So reconciliation, I believe, at this juncture is something in which all of us could really seriously consider of really what that word implies. And for me, it's very simple, because I, as a Mi'kmaq person, I would like to bring forth the best from my culture. And you bring the best from your culture. And with those two best ways of knowing, then I believe we are then not just be more than prepared of entering into this space I would like to call critical thinking, or critical space. Because it's through this critical space that we come forth together with our hearts open and our minds open, not just to hear, but to learn from other perspectives, so that be mindful and always be reminded that when we start reflecting into the past, we can clearly see some of those actions that were done and committed were not only inappropriate, but were very, very much harmful to a certain group of people. And somehow empower ourselves to some degree of ensuring that any injustice, social, environmental, or any injustice, that we will not be comfortable of remaining in action or in silence. That we will make an effort that if and when everything is done injustly, we will not close our eyes to it. We will do everything in our power to voice our concerns and lend support to the ones that have been targeted. And I believe at this juncture, I would like to use or borrow the words of this one man that has brought this forth to us, and that's Senator Maurice Sinclair, when he said, "It's the education system that got us into this mess." Now, let's use this education system, the right education system, to get us out of it. And I believe every aspect of our lives has been somewhat influenced through this system. And I believe as we are reflecting, we could see then that obviously there is a great need of some kind of a transformative change. And it should become incumbent upon all of us to agree and to say, now we need a new narrative. But this new narrative has to be structured from a collective, because the issues or the problems that we have identified would always require a collective effort. Because it's through this collective effort, I believe, we can find peace, knowing that we are fulfilling our inherent responsibilities, not only to walk gently upon our Mother Earth, but to treat other beings, especially human beings, of ensuring that their state of being is always maintained in a balanced and harmonious way. Because I believe if we somehow embrace this concept of interconnectivity, interdependency, we can then clearly see how interdependent and interconnected we are, and how much we have, how much we can actually gain if we can see the gifts that each individual has, and use that knowledge to guide us and to support us. Because if and when I need another perspective of another knowledge, I know exactly where to go to. And this is done, I believe, in my humble opinion, as a Mi'kmaq person, was always done in a form of a story. Because the beauty of a story is, of course, we will now know individually who we are, where we come from, and why we are here. And hopefully soon, we will also be able to embrace another W. Where are we going? And that will answer that question for us. If we can sit down one day collectively and start crafting this new narrative and use that narrative to guide us as to how we go moving forward. Foremost is that every action that we will take will always ensure that it will be harmonious and balanced with our Mother Earth. Because how can we forget? We solely depend upon her for our very existence. Unless there's some concerted effort put forth in that, I believe we would then miss or fail to exercise our inherent responsibilities. Because our responsibilities, I believe, start from birth and only end at death. And that's, to me, is the education system can give us knowledge for the knowledge we will need as to how we go about sustaining ourselves. And reflecting on those words from Murray Sinclair, I believe it's about time that we somehow transform this education system to be so holistic that it will not only create opportunities for people as to how they can go about sustaining themselves, but also to be the best that they could ever be, so that they can graciously and willingly keep exercising our responsibilities, not just to take care of each other, because that should be an overarching objective. Because if we will need each other, because we're the only species that I see that have something that no other creature has, and that is a cognitive mind. And we do know that in some cases that cognitive mind was used for in some wrong or not so acceptable reasons, especially when it comes to injustices, whether it's social, environmental, or any other way. And that we will somehow commit ourselves to use the gift that we have been given, and that's our voices, a voice in our concerns and saying, this is not acceptable in any format. And then we're going to make an effort to voice those concerns, and just think, if we can come as together, then I believe we will ultimately be able to foster the kind of changes that we will need as to how we move forward together in a balanced and harmonious way. So reconciliation, I believe, should not only be fall on institutions, organizations, but individually, because I believe I have to take some responsibility of some of the injustices, whether they're against humans, against nature, of allowing myself to be inactive and to be silent. So I have to take that responsibility on my own. And in order for I to reconcile with that, I have to be humble enough and say, this is what I have failed to do, but this is what I pledge to do from here on in. Of not just reconciling with it, but to change and to ensure that all my efforts, all the gifts that I have been given, and always to use those gifts and efforts for the benefit of all. Because ultimately, we are so dependent on not only with each other, but we are so dependent on the goodwill of our Earth Mother. As well, we have to be very mindful that We are not the superior being here. We are just a very small part and parcel of this wonderful creation. But again, like any other relatives, we have something in which they don't have. And let's use that then, not only to acknowledge and to see those injustices that have been carried out for the sake of few, that we will use those lessons learned and put those lessons learned into our new narrative of ensuring that this will be our guiding principle as to how we move forward together in a balanced and harmonious way, not just with humans, but with every other life form. Because we cannot forget, without clean air, without clean drinking water, without fertile soil, no one can exist. So this extent of responsibility, I believe, it might feel quite encumbersome, but I don't think it is. I think there's always a room and an opportunity, individually and hopefully collectively. We will make a concerted effort of how we move forward with the lessons that we have extracted from the past to guide us into the direction in which we must follow. And again, I believe, as an Aboriginal person, I really feel excluded in most cases, because the current education system has not made any attempt of including me, of who I am, or including any of my stories. Therefore, I only not feel excluded, but I also feel I am denied of sharing and exercising my responsibilities for the benefit of all. So I believe if reconciliation is going to mean anything to each and every one of us, I think we have to do a lot of inner reflection, in which we will embrace respect. If I do not respect myself, how can I respect nature or respect anyone else? If I cannot see myself as part and parcel of this wonderful creation, and we know this wonderful creation is so sacred, then I too fall in that category of being revered, because I am very much part and parcel of it. Since we all have different backgrounds, different knowledge bases, I think the onus is in all of us of embracing this word, reciprocity, of training and teaching ourselves always to weave back and forth between all these multiple perspectives that we may be shared with, and to use those multiple perspectives to guide us in the direction in which will all lead us in a good way, in a good life. Again, if I cannot show and demonstrate my responsibilities, then how can I expect for others to be responsible? So I believe some of those little things, I believe, can help us and guide us, and to remind us that we are almost humans. And humans, sometimes we fail to see and to feel why we are here and what our responsibilities are. So reconciliation, again, I believe, something in which it's unfortunate that we have to be focused on that concept today. But I believe there's always a lot of opportunities in which, through this reflection that we are taking, and to use those reflections as a guiding principle, as the lessons that we need, how we should move forward, and to have this concept of it cannot and should not be business as usual, because it's that business as usual, I believe, that have got us into this mess in which words like reconciliation becomes so important. So I really don't know at this juncture what more one can say other than admit that I am, and I was part of the problem. But I do now realize that I cannot hide behind my inaction or my silence, that I would pledge everything that I have and to use the gifts that the Creator has given us. And not only, not that we can correct the wrong, but at least extract the lessons that we need to extract from those actions of the past, or even at the present. Because some of the things that are so obvious in my mind is that these colonial policies and practices are continuing to this day. That is really a very difficult and a challenging question. But so as not to put anyone in a spot. Let's only look at them and say, these are the lessons that we're going to use to guide us as to how we will move forward together, foremost in a balanced and harmonious way. Because part of my responsibility, of course, is to ensure that no action will I ever take will compromise the integrity of Mother Earth, or compromise the cleansing capacity of Mother Earth. And with those reminders, I believe it helps me to always not just to focus, but to be grounded on the principles of those concepts, of ensuring that I cannot forget whatever I do unto her, it ultimately affects and impacts me. So in fact, then, if I'm abusing people, if I'm abusing environment, I'm literally harming myself. So again, I believe the only thing that I will be very comfortable in offering is that how do we move forward of using hope, love, and compassion as a guiding principle of how we move forward. And I believe people that are involved as a knowledge navigator or teachers in a modern context, I think the responsibilities are heavy, because it's through your institutions that are going to set the stage as to how people will see themselves, how people will be guided as to how they move forward in a different path than the ones we have come from. Because I believe it should become incumbent in all of us and acknowledge and recognize not only our nature evolves, but also our knowledges also have to evolve, always to be in tune with where nature is taking us. So I do hope that we take this day and make sure that the reflections that we will all be doing will be one of which that it is not going to be business as usual. But this journey forward is going to be based on the spirit of co-learning, spirit of collaboration, so that we can use the gifts that the Creator has given us, not only to guide us, but to help us to journey forward together.
Albert, we have some questions for you. Can you take some questions?
Sure.
Yeah, one of them was, how does two-eyed seeing help us grow in our treaty-based modes of relating?
Excuse me. Now, before that question can be answered, I believe, again, through reflection and through determination, we have to somehow acquaint ourselves about the language within those treaties. For me, it's very simple, because a word treaty in my language would be ankugamkawi. And you can take that word ankugamkawi as, how should we take care of ourselves? Because if we take care of ourselves as it was intended, then we can better take care or fulfill our responsibilities of ensuring that no individual action or a collective action will always cause a negative reaction to the very source of life in which we all depend upon. So I guess for individually, I don't think any one of us can really come up with a plan as to how this is to be implemented, unless we clearly understand when those treaties were made, they were made in a spirit in which we at that time knew that we lived here for thousands and thousands of years in a balance and harmony with nature. And we welcomed and we expected these people that came to live into our areas to abide by the principles of those, as to how we have managed to coexist with this very complex system of environment, but never compromise the integrity of it. So to me, the part that says we're all treaty people, I think people should really do a lot of soul searching exactly what that means, and how would that mean individually of what your responsibilities are. Because these responsibilities were not, say, going to be on the hands of the government or some other institution. But I believe it was meant in the spirit of individual that was agreed and welcomed to live in this territory of ours, which is now part of Mi'kmaq, which encompasses, by the way, Nova Scotia, part of Maine, part of Quebec, PEI, and Newfoundland, which is really a vast area. And each geographical area had to be subdivided into 7 ecological zones, because it's impossible for any group or individually to be completely become connected and have this knowledge to know about the environment. Because unless you understand and know your environment, then it's pretty hard to extract any lessons from it. So this treaty responsibility does not fall, or should not be expected to fall, on the hands of the government or hands of any institution, but rather to individually. So this is an accord or an agreement, I believe, that was made in the spirit of, just like any time in our lives, when we invite guests in our homes, we sort of expect them to abide by some rules and conditions in which how we maintain our homes in such an order. So this treaty responsibility then, I believe, is and should be from an individual perspective, or individual's level, and not to any other entity like the government or the industry. I don't know if that quite.
No, I think that was, no, absolutely. Yes, thank you. I have another student that asked, what are some steps we can take to make Indigenous people feel happy and important?
Well, I believe by changing the format in some places, in one area, I believe, as I keep saying, is through the education system. Education system, from my perspective, has been used quite effectively to eradicate and to kill the spirit that's in me. And if my spirit is placed in a state of dormancy, how can I then effectively be a member of the community? Because I have been somewhat affected or displaced, or because if my spirit, if any of those domains is not upheld in harmonious way, physical, cognitive, emotional, and spiritual, if any of those domains is missing, then how can I feel well? I feel there is something that is amiss here. I'm incapacitated in some shape or form. And if you are incapacitated, how can you possibly be expected to excel academically, sport, or any other things that we need to do in life? So again, I believe, can we somehow agree, considering what has been shared, that there is a great need of some kind of a transformative change. But for anyone to feel that there is a need for some kind of a transfer, they have to allow themselves for others to share some of those experiences that were not acceptable in any shape or form, and make an effort that this will not be the course in which we'll be moving forward. So again, everything that we do is like any journey that we will be proposing, no matter how long it will be, how long would be challenging. Unless we agree to take that first baby step, well, that journey cannot begin. And I think that's something that could be applied individually to motivate ourselves, that collectively or en masse would be much more effective than these little voices in the wilderness. Mm-hmm. So again, I cannot stress, journey forward together has to be done on the spirit of collaboration and spirit of co-learning, because each and every, no matter what background you may come from, whether you are from the black race, the red race, yellow race, or white race, we all have been given the gifts, and for those gifts were meant to be used collectively for the benefit of all.
Thank you. Sheena asks, can you tell us a bit more about the concept Tu'i Seen through your language?
Well, Tu'i Seen to me, I think, is very much a guiding principle as to how I move, how I see myself in this wonderful creation. Because it's Tu'i Seen that my main focus would be is that identify the gifts that have been given to me, and to find those skills and tools that have been given to me, fine-tune them to a point in which I can now begin to share them so others can benefit from it. So to me, it's very simple that through I seen, I believe, of course, it became apparent 25 years ago. We always refer to it as another perspective, but to catch the attentions of our Aboriginal youth, we decided to coin it as twice seen, because everybody has twice seen. And initially, we were encouraging our young Aboriginal students to look at these two knowledge bases, the knowledge that had been left to them by their ancestors, and to use those lessons, the best from those lessons, and seek the lessons from other perspectives of what other people have brought forth, and to apply those two perspectives in a integrative way, in which you put the two knowledges together to become one. I think this is something that is still quite challenging, because twice seen is somewhat used as maybe something that is somewhat entertaining, and it does not really have any practical application to it. But I can't see it that way, because you see, I see it as this is what I have, this is what I can contribute, and the onus is on me to use and to share what I have for the benefit of all. When I use that word benefit, not just for the humanity, but also for all the living things that we solely depend upon. So I believe it's at least I feel that that's challenging to come up with a definition that would be so encompassing that people will just say yes. But I think, again, we have to bring that back to us on an individual level. And how do we understand it? And what reflections can I have? And to use that as a guiding principle as to how my actions will unfold as I am moving forward.
Well, Sheena, who asked that question, just commented, and I wanted to share this with you. She says, your humility in accepting responsibility moving forward is inspiring. I wanted to pass that along. Another, probably the final question, Elder Marshall, when you talked about, the collective, do you think that the, teachers and students listening today can, create that collective within their own schools, bring elders and youth and different races and elders together to make a change?
Well, first of all, I believe it would be fair to say that we're all somewhat being sort of victims of circumstance, if you may. We have, on one hand, have been given the opportunities to learn everything there is to know about what the newcomers have brought forth. But unfortunately, very little effort has been put forth, providing an opportunity for us to share our stories. And elders and knowledge keepers are libraries, unless they are given an opportunity and a chance to share their stories of creating this harmony that should coexist in all of us. Because again, through these stories, again, each and every one of us will know who we are, where we come from, and why we are here. And that last part is very critical, because why we are here is that I have certain gifts in which someone else could benefit from, and vice versa. So again, I cannot stress enough, why can we not embrace the spirit of co-learning, in which we will always seek how can we learn from each other? Because you have gifts that I can use at any point in time, and vice versa. And would you not agree that if this kind of if we can embrace this concept, which we always remind ourselves, what does relationship means? Well, the closest I can come to is the fundamental principle of any relationship has to be in a form of a story. Because how knowledge sometimes is transferred is going to be based on how many facts can I share with you. But in our stories, we more or less focus on insights of how and where do we feel that this is something that has not only sustained us, but this is something that I believe others can share. For example, when we look at science is a wonderful knowledge. But to date, I believe science has somehow been unsuccessful of looking at nature as a subject, but rather as a subject. Now, and I believe, I mean, I do know that in some of these institutions, they do have labs. And sometimes they even go as far as dissecting a frog, which is a wonderful knowledge to have and to know. But would it be much more expedient if we can really learn the purpose of that frog within the system at large? So these are the comparisons, I believe, in which traditional knowledge, because traditional knowledge, by the way, is not just inherent to Mi'kmaq, oh yes, a Mi'kmaq, but it's inherent to every person in this world. It's based on the knowledge that evolved from your language, from what you have heard from your parents and so on. So each knowledge base is somewhat different, but I believe there is also should be a common ground with those knowledge in which we can use for the benefit of I cannot emphasize that benefit of all, because when I use that word benefit of all, I just do not mean the humanity, but every living thing. And unless we can find some balance of reminding ourselves that we are not the superior being here, that nature has rights and we have responsibilities.
Well, that's an amazing way to, an amazing message, an amazing way to end this session. I want to thank you, Elder Marshall. This has been, as Sheena said, inspiring. And I want to thank you for your knowledge and your wisdom and for being here today. These sessions will remain on the NCTR YouTube channel. They go up tomorrow. And I want to thank all the teachers and students for participating. You have a wonderful day, and thank you again. Walalin.